This shoe, the review of the Air Max Interlock Lite. Interesting name there. We've had an Air Max series with a similar type of looking Air Max midsole that was coming up in like a rainbow array of colors. But I felt like they were a little bit, you know, gimmicky. But this one is actually a little bit different because it actually feels like if you look at the air sole inside, there's no pillar. There's just air in between these two areas. No pillar, no foam, nothing. And this little plasticky part, this is all rubber. So the outsole is pretty thin, but here there's like enhanced rigidity and stability here. So unlike the typical Air Max models where you feel like there's some degree of wonkiness in terms of the air tubes compressing side to side, here the rubber outsole, the thickness right here, that acts sort of like a stabilizer and a pillar. And the air sole here, it feels like it works like a lower to the ground, low profile shocks. Remember those shocks pillars, columns that we've had in the past that were supposed to feel like spring, but they didn't really feel that much like spring. So this feels like a lower to the ground version of shocks which is a little bit softer, but it provides an interesting little bounce. So this is a nice little interesting experimental step taken by Nike, and I really appreciate this. I wish they would do something more with this. It feels nice. As I mentioned, it feels like shocks. There's compression and there's that bounciness. Unfortunately, the midsole is sort of like an injected Phylon, very rigid, very high density. So it's very rigid. And also it's not, I wish they would have made it a little bit thinner here because this Air Max, as high as it may seem, it compresses easily and it's pretty low to the ground. So it feels like there's not much of a heel to toe drop. It feels pretty, straightforward. So that's a bit of a disappointment there. For a size 9, it weighs about 365 grams. It's actually not that heavy, but this thick rubber area is where all the weight is. So you can feel the shoe sinking kind of back on the heel. So depending on how your stride is and where you like the weight distributed, if this is what you prefer, this is the shoe you want to get. I would say go down half a size if you want a tight fit. If you want to wear it casually, true to size is fine. But this is very roomy, so if you have really narrow fit and you want a tight fit, you might even want to go down a whole size down. The upper is interesting. It's sort of like a engineered mesh with a lot of scaly, starchy material around. So it feels like it's going to be a little bit scratchy and durable to abrasion, but at the same time, it's very easily flexible. And interestingly, it's fairly breathable. More breathable than most models out there that claims to be breathable, but they have a thick inner booty and they suffocate your foot in the end. The padding, as you can see, is very suede and nice and plush. This little part, depending on how sensitive you are to the pinching sensation to the Achilles, try it on, move around a little bit, see if this hinders you. It's kind of heightened, so if this bothers you, then you might want to think about ways to break it down or maybe not get them for yourself. There's a heel cup prominently, but even without the heel cup, again, this little rubber gimmick, this setup actually provides a lot of stability. That's incredible. The outsole is interesting. It's these little patterns. Interestingly, kind of like a shocks-like pattern there. So every little pattern, it's got different contours, elevation. It's sticking out. Some parts are sticking out further. Some parts are sunken in or inundated. So overall, they provide a very interesting grip. It's not flat. It's not, copy and pasted traction that just slips all over the place. So this is another interesting irregular traction pattern that Nike might want to experiment with in the future. This little flex groove, it's interesting, but it's nothing fantastic. It doesn't provide any sensational experience. I guess it depends on your foot size. For me, I didn't feel anything spectacular. The insole it's given is a typical NSW, the casual Nike wear insole. It's pretty thick. It's ortholite-like. It's very fluffy, very low density and soft. Works nicely with this shoe, but on the forefoot, it feels like there's minimal or no cushioning at all. So typical traditional Air Max shoes like Air Max 90, you don't feel that much on the forefoot. This is pretty much it. Wish they would have used a softer foam, or maybe put Zoom Air on the forefoot, and they could make an interesting basketball shoe or some type of a performance shoe out of it. This is a very intriguing and a very promising experiment by Nike.